What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. For this video, we're going to be talking about the Falcons season last season, their off season, and how I think they're going to do next season. And for those people who are new to this channel, as this is your first video, I'm basically going to try and do this for every single team, every single NFL team. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to be playing with the team I'm talking about, because that's what makes the most sense. So with the Atlanta Falcons, they went 7-10, and they obviously didn't make the playoffs. But despite going 7-10, I actually really like the outlook for this team next season, because they went 7-10 despite having probably one of the worst head coaches last season in Arthur Smith. He, fortunately for Falcons fans, and probably for NFL fans, honestly, he is no longer the coach. They decided to have Raheem Morris. They hired him from within, I believe. He's going to be their new head coach. And their biggest signing by far was they brought in Kirk Cousins to be their quarterback. And that's a big thing with this team, is their quarterback situation last season was arguably the worst in football, because they were just the sole reason why this team was not winning more games. Because you had games where they lose like by 2 or 3 points, and a half-decent quarterback would have been able to win those games. When they didn't have a half-decent quarterback, they had Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke, and those two guys were just not getting the job done like they hoped they would. And as much as I like what they've done for most of their offseason, they did do one thing that was puzzling, and I'm assuming most people think this is puzzling as well. They drafted Michael Penix Jr. with their first round pick that they had. Now, why the hell are you drafting a quarterback if you just signed Kirk Cousins? And they signed Kirk Cousins to like a 4-year, $185 million, $100 million guaranteed deal. So clearly they are valuing Kirk Cousins like he is a franchise quarterback. I know it's a little complicated with, the salaries for NFL quarterbacks being heavily inflated, but still, that's a lot of money that you are giving to a guy, which at the time I didn't mind, because, you have to pay talent, and Kirk Cousins obviously has the talent to be a solid quarterback. But yeah, I was kind of confused on why they decided to take Michael Penix Jr. And I'm assuming a lot of other people don't understand the reason either, because, what the hell are they thinking? Are they hoping for, a Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers type situation where they drafted Jordan Love with their first round pick despite them needing an extra wide receiver? It's a little more complicated than that, because, at least with the Packers, Aaron Rodgers has way more, ties to the franchise than Kirk Cousins has to the Falcons. Kirk Cousins hasn't even played yet. But Aaron Rodgers, he's going to be a future Hall of Famer, and, everyone knows that. And he had played up to that standard when they drafted Jordan Love. But at the same time, even at the time, it's still, even thinking about it, obviously it worked out because Jordan Love's a great quarterback now, but, even if you look back, maybe the Packers would have won a Super Bowl or something, because they never won a Super Bowl. Well, they did, but that was back in 2011. But they were a Super Bowl contender, and they were about a wide receiver away from truly, being up there with the other teams. But they didn't take one then. And you could argue that if they did, they would have won. And I feel like that's a similar situation to the Falcons. Obviously the Falcons are a little further away from being a Super Bowl contender than the Packers were at that time. But it's just a similar thing I don't understand. Because, this roster is definitely not bad, especially not their offense, aside from quarterback, but they fixed that with Kirk Cousins. And I credit them for doing that because a lot of teams don't have the balls to go out and get their guys in free agency. And I really do credit them for getting a quarterback like Kirk Cousins because he was available and they decided to take him. But they have holes on their defense that they could fix up. I mean, their front seven is a little iffy, so why would you not draft a guy there? Why would you draft a quarterback opposed to a guy like Chop Robinson, for example? Someone like that who could play on the front seven and help them, because they definitely had their issues there last season. And, I mean, all their cornerbacks outside of A.J. Terrell aren't very good either. I mean, obviously he's good, but everyone else, him and Jesse Bates are really the only two, secondary pieces back there that are really going to contribute in a good way. Everyone else is either, below average or, not starting caliber for an NFL team. So I'm just confused why they wouldn't, draft there with their first round pick, and they drafted a quarterback. And not another thing is like, it's going to stir up so much, drama during the season. If Kirk Cousins has a bad game or two, people are going to start saying, when's this guy going to start? When's Michael Penix Jr. going to start? And then they're going to say like, oh, well, if they didn't draft him, he'd be playing better because it's going to get to his head or something like that. People are just going to do that and take that the wrong way. And I feel like that's just going to cause such a distraction for this team if they're not careful. Like, I don't even hate their offseason, because do I think they would have won a Super Bowl with, a guy like Chop Robinson? They draft him opposed to Michael Penix Jr. No, I don't, because this team is still probably at least a year away from really being a Super Bowl contender, but at the same time, you still need to build up this roster, and drafting a rookie quarterback when you go for a quarterback in free agency who is a borderline top 10 quarterback. I mean, I'm not sure if, he's going to play like one, but he is a borderline top 10. And he's going to bring this team, I would assume he would bring him to the playoffs at the very least. But, like, you still have to build up the defense if you truly want to compete. And the Falcons, they just don't really, they don't have a bad defense by any means, but they could use some work. Like I mentioned, their front seven's not the best. And, they could have worked on that, but they really didn't do much to fix up their, defense. But maybe they'll do that next season, but I still don't understand the Michael Penix thing. Like, do they think he's going to be their next franchise quarterback or something? Because, if they do, then I completely understand why they drafted him. But if they thought he was their franchise quarterback, then why the hell would you go and get Kirk Cousins? Because I feel like when you have a situation like this, it just complicates things so much. Like, I think, they kind of did this with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua Tagovailoa when he was drafted. They had him play first, and he was better because, he had the experience. And I think it's going to be similar situation with Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix Jr. because obviously I think Kirk Cousins is going to play better than Michael Penix unless he completely falls off a cliff or something like that. He's going to play better than a rookie quarterback. And I'm assuming, most quarterbacks would. But I don't know. I just think you either need to go all in with Kirk Cousins or go all in with Michael Penix. I don't think you can, do both at the same time because I think that's really going to complicate things. I already mentioned that, but it's so true. Like, you really think that, this locker room is going to be, normal with this type of situation? Because I don't. You've got guys like Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, all those guys are great, but are they really gonna be okay with like switching quarterbacks this season? Because I feel like the Falcons think that's what's gonna happen. They think that, Kirk's gonna play for a few games and then they're gonna start Michael Penix for a game or two. That's gonna throw off the rhythm of the offense, I feel like. So why the hell take a guy like that and get Kirk Cousins? Like, you gotta do one or the other. I mean, the Michael Penix thing, if you're going to do that, I feel like that would be a risky move. Like, if you did just that and not the Kirk Cousins thing, it'd be risky, but, it'd make more sense than what they did this season, like, with doing both, just because you're giving your guy a chance and you're not going to make it all complicated like they have done. This obviously could be just a pick that they're gonna, let sit for a season. I could see that. If they do that, then I honestly don't think it's too bad. But I don't really think that's what they're gonna do, because if there's one thing that we've learned about NFL teams and their patience is they don't got a lot of it anymore. They'll throw a rookie out if they have to. And when you take a guy with your first round pick, I feel like you got to at least play him like one game in his rookie season. Do I think he should start? Absolutely not, because Kirk Cousins, they gave him a contract and he is going to be significantly better than Michael Penix, assuming nothing insane happens, but I really don't see that happening. But, those are really my thoughts with this team. It's not the worst offseason ever, but it's just such a drama. It's going to be a drama-filled season, I feel like, just because of the situation that they did. And it's also kind of adding insult to injury for Kirk Cousins, because apparently when they drafted Michael Penix, they didn't even tell him about it. Like, they didn't even bother to mention, hey, Kirk, we're going to take a quarterback of Michael Penix, we're going to take him. No, they didn't say anything. He literally found out the same time that we all did when we were watching the draft. So it's like, are you seriously not going to tell your quarterback if that's what you have planned? I feel like that's such a shitty thing to do. You just gave him a contract and all that, but you kind of just told him like, hey, we're going to keep you, but not for long, like we said we would when we signed you. It's like, I don't think he appreciates it that much, and I don't blame him. That's kind of a fucked up thing to do for your quarterback. Like, why would you not at least mention it to him? Because I know one of the reasons he left the Vikings was because he wanted to be the quarterback. And, they didn't bother to mention it because they were probably afraid he wouldn't sign. But, you could have at least mentioned it to him before the draft. It's like, what are you doing, Falcons? They could have... I feel like ever since they blew that lead in the Super Bowl, I don't want to be the guy to bring this up, but I feel like they just still have not recovered from that. Blowing a 28-3 lead, it's kind of just broken this team, because I feel like ever since they've just have not been able to properly construct a roster. They're either missing, a quarterback, they're either missing, a defense, because I remember when they had Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, their offense was top 10 every year, but their defense was so bad that it literally didn't even matter, and they just never made the playoffs. And now it's like you've got a solid offense, solid defense, but you lack the quarterback last season. They fixed it by getting Kirk Cousins. Quotations around fix, because technically we don't know how he's going to do. But, you got the roster, and I really do think this team can make the playoffs. Their division is weak as hell. And I definitely think they will win the NFC South and maybe win a playoff game. But I don't really see much more than that, because they didn't build up the defense to be a Super Bowl caliber defense. Because I feel like this is a solid defense, but in the NFL, you got to have, a Super Bowl caliber defense. I mean, it can't just be a solid defense. It's got to be at least like a top 15, probably top 10 defense, if we're being honest, considering that, they don't have a quarterback with the caliber of Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. If you don't have like a superstar quarterback, your defense needs to be even better, because it has to make up for the fact that your quarterback isn't like a top 5 quarterback. Because, I mean, you could put Kirk Cousins in a top 10 conversation, but is this guy really going to be the sole reason you win games or anything like that? I mean, no, he's not. I mean, there's a reason why he's, left the Vikings. There's a reason the Vikings didn't want to give him the money. I mean, he's a limited quarterback. And, instead of helping Kirk Cousins out by giving him a better defense, they decided to get a quarterback who's going to start in a few years, I would assume, or this season, assuming the Falcons do what I think they're going to do. But, I mean, yeah, that just does not make any sense to me, why they would do what I'd mentioned. Because it's going to throw off the whole dynamic of the team. And if Kirk Cousins plays, poorly, and people, start to speculate about Michael Penix starting, and the Falcons, I feel like they're a team that would just go ahead and do it, because, I mean, it's not like this team, I don't really see this team as super competent, opposed to other teams. I mean, no offense to the Falcons organization, but, I mean, some of the shit that they've done, it's like, you have to question whether or not these guys truly know what they're doing. And that's kind of what I'm doing with this team right now. It's like, do you really trust this team to do the right thing? And I kind of don't, because it's just like, no matter what they do, it's like they always, mess it up in some way, whether it's, blowing a 25-point lead in a Super Bowl, the only team to ever do that. Whether it's drafting a quarterback when you sign Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal, whether it's, having Arthur Smith be the head coach for longer than he should have been, whether it's having Desmond Ridder be your quarterback, it's just something is always up with this team. And I feel like it's going to be something else this season. There's going to be something that goes wrong, because that's just how this team is. I feel like they don't really fix their issues. They just kind of they kind of procrastinate the big issue, or they fix it and then they make it more complicated in the process, which is what they did with the quarterback situation. But we'll have to see how this team does. We'll see if they'll prove me wrong. We'll see if, Michael Penix is the next Patrick Mahomes or whatever. But we still got a few more months of waiting before we get to see that. And I'm going to end this video right now. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it to the end of this video. And comment below what you think the Falcons are going to do if you want to. And until then, I will see you in my next video.